National elections in both India and Mexico could shake up those countries' economies and investments. Here to help us understand the fallout is Malcolm Dorson, Senior Portfolio Manager and Head of Emerging Markets Strategy at Global X. Malcolm, thanks for joining the show. Let's start with India, Malcolm. And you see these headlines. It looks like election results showing a tight win for Modi here. What do you make of that, Malcolm? And what does it mean for investors?
Well, thanks for having me, Josh, Julie. Nice to see you guys. So the past couple of days have been really volatile. Broadly across emerging markets, we've seen elections in Mexico, India, and South Africa. But India specifically, going into the last night of elections, exit polls showed a remarkably strong victory for Modi and the BJP. And now as we're seeing real numbers come out this morning, it looks like the margin of victory was much smaller, meaning that we're going to move forward with the coalition government.
And so what does that then mean? I mean, it seems from what I'm reading that some of the implications are that maybe there was some dissatisfaction with the vast inequality, economic inequality that's going on in India. But what are the implications for Modi's ability to affect his economic goals? Yeah,
so from an investment perspective, the market was very enthusiastic and excited about a potential majority victory last night. Market was up 4% yesterday. And as we saw the real numbers come in today, we saw the Nifty 50 fall about 6%. Big picture, I think the market's getting a little bit ahead of itself. Modi is still in power. A coalition government isn't necessarily a bad thing. It provides a good system of checks and balances. And big picture, India isn't a 2-week story. This isn't a 1-week election story. This is a 20-year story that's probably the best structural setup that we see in the world. It's benefiting from not only democratic elections, but a market-friendly government, very attractive demographics, momentum out of China in terms of manufacturing and supply chain diversification, and a very unique digital stack that's well ahead of its curve. So I manage an India fund, and the pushback that I always get is, does India seem a little too expensive or multiples a little high? And in general, yes, especially the past year or two, we've been at a bit of a premium towards its historical average. But now this is it. We just got a 6% pullback on the whole market with no downgrade to earnings, and the country's still growing 7% GDP this year. So frankly, I'm really excited.
Malcolm, let's switch gears, talk about Mexico as well. First female president there. Are you equally bullish on Mexico, Malcolm, for an investor with a long-term time horizon?
Sure. So this one's a little difficult, more difficult, say nuanced, for lack of better words. I think this is more showing the risks behind a candidate winning too much power. Though we expected a Sheinbaum victory, she did much better than expected in terms of support in the Senate and the lower house, which is going to give her much more power and much more control. Between her and her predecessor, AMLO, they'll be able to name 9 out of 11 Supreme Court justices before the end of her term. And I think there is risk of more state intervention, of more spending. We've seen a big pickup in the fiscal deficit through the past few months that are going to be very difficult to turn back once she is in power, because she's either going to have to raise taxes or cut subsidies to the lower portions of the economic pyramid, which is totally against her ideals. So I think that there is risk with a higher fiscal deficit that could translate into higher inflation and a weaker currency, which of course, as a US dollar investor, would create a challenge. So we've been able to trim our positions in Mexico a little bit ahead of this.
And just briefly, Malcolm, then, do you think whether we're talking about India or Mexico, that you expect in the near term, at least, some continued caution and kind of at least a sideways trade, perhaps, in equities there?
Certainly in Mexico. I think that especially in terms of smaller cap, higher beta trades, people are going to be moving out of those and probably more into kind of quality, safer blue chip names. And then in India, I think that we're going to see people refocus on fundamentals, on equity stories, and not just buying momentum, not just buying small caps, buying beta anymore. They're going to see this more as a system of checks and balances, and it's going to be a good opportunity for stock pickers across the board.
Thanks a lot, Malcolm. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.